All right. Hello again, adventurers, and welcome to another exciting daily vlog. This is daily vlog number 22, and I really don't know what I want to talk about today. I I had a lot of fun talking about kind of my game design stuff for the past couple of days, and I was trying to think if there was another topic about game design that I wanted to talk about. And I guess there's been a few that have been kind of rattling around in my head about, which one would be fun. And I think, just because again, I don't have, like, as far as daily vlogs, then what's going on in my life. I had therapy today, talked to my therapist. Uh, it was a productive meeting. And then the rest of the day, I have been in bed sick because that's how my life works right now. But I was thinking about other aspects of tabletop RPG design that tend to get me excited. And obviously, like, there's a reason why the first part of the Wizards of the Coast D&D 5e Player's Handbook is an introduction and then character options. Character options are really exciting in an RPG because that's what probably close to 80 or 90% of the people that are going to be interacting with the system, that's the part they're going to be interacting with the most. They're going to be creating a character so that they can play. The rest of the people, the very small minority of people that are going to be dungeon mastering, are still going to interact with that part of the book. They just have other stuff that they have to do as well. And so I know a lot of people, when they're looking at either a new system entirely or just a new supplement for a system that they enjoy, they're immediately going to go to character options. I have to look at the character options. And I'm that way too. I like looking at character options. I like looking at the different ways that I'm going to be able to create a unique character that I'm going to find fun to play. But since I started in the tabletop RPG world as a GM, the very first tabletop RPG I ever played was the Dragon Age RPG. And the reason I played it was because they had a free starter set, and I had seen it on tabletop. The old YouTube show that Will Wheaton hosted, that was probably one of the greatest YouTube shows ever created. And the way that I got into it was because of tabletop, I had started a tabletop group where basically we would come to my apartment, and I would, I had purchased a couple of board games myself, and other people would bring board games, and once a week we would just play board games, and it was massively fun. It was so incredible, and it was an absolute blast. And after I've been doing it for a while, I purchased one of the D&D board games. The one that I purchased was The Legend of Drizzt. And what those effectively were they were 4th edition in a box. They gave you pre-made characters, and you had a little map. And so it wasn't actually 4th edition, but it used most of the same rules. Just extremely kind of board game-ified versions of it. And we played one session of that, and they really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. I said, hey, would you guys mind, like, trying an actual tabletop RPG? Like, yeah, sure, whatever. And so, yeah, I was the GM for that session, and everybody loved it. For the life of me, I cannot remember running that session. I cannot remember a single thing about it. But I know the system. And I remember thinking that stunt points were really, really cool and stuff like that. And then the very next thing was like, well, do you guys want to play like an actual game? What if we did like a D&D game? And so we started a 4th edition D&D game. That went horribly because we had the dude that was running it was a really bad GM, to be perfectly honest. Chris, if you're watching this, you're a great person. At least I think no, it wasn't Chris. I can't remember the guy's name anymore. Anyway, if you were my first dungeon master, you are kind of a good person, but you were a horrendous GM, like real bad. And it wasn't just so much that he kind of made it up as he went along, because I do that. Most GMs do that. But he didn't really learn the rules, and he was very railroady, and it was not fun at all. And that was the game where the final session we had this kid who wasn't a kid. He was like maybe a year or two younger than I was. So he was in his early 20s, or like he might have been 19. But I think he was in his early 20s. But he was still young. He was young at heart, definitely. And he was an atheist. Why does it matter what his religious belief system was? Oh, because he made it matter. He made it matter very much. He decided he wanted to play Dragonborn Paladin. In 4th edition, Dragonborn Paladins were like if I remember correctly, the picture of a paladin in the player's handbook was a Dragonborn Paladin. And Dragonborn actually got bonuses to both strength and charisma. So, and that's what paladins used in 4th edition. They all their stuff was charisma. All their spells were charisma based. Dragonborn Paladin was a classic thing, and he was really excited to play for it until he found out what a paladin was. What? Somebody that serves a god? No, I don't believe in God. Well, that's fantastic. Your character would, because unlike in the real world where the existence of God is heavily debated, in the Forgotten Realms, which is where we were playing, or no, I think we were playing Nentir Vale, which was the default setting for 4th edition. So in D&D, everyone believes in the gods because they're real, and they tend to fuck around with people, like a lot. Like there was a period of time in the Forgotten Realms where they literally were just walking around on the planet, and they're doing things like giving clerics spells. It's the only way, and they talk to their followers in that. Like they're not like super mysterious. Everybody knows that there's gods. No, I'm not. I'm never. No, there is no God, and I don't care what you say. So he made this huge deal about he wanted to play a paladin. We're like, well, why don't you play like you play one of the various versions of fighters? Because this was near the end of 4th edition, so there was like 30 some odd classes that you could choose from. And then inside each class, there's a bunch of different options that you could use. And I had a D&D Insider subscription, so that basically gave me access to everything. So I could make everybody's characters for them and just print them off for them. And I had a really nice printer at that point because I was working for an office supply company, and I was able to get the printer at a really good deal. So I actually bought the printer from my store and bought the service plan because it would have killed our numbers if we didn't. And I forced one of my associates to actually pitch the kit, which is a long story. But I forced one of my associates to sell it to me as a training exercise, because that's the kind of manager I was. But anyway, so he's playing this paladin, and he got it into his mind that a high charisma score meant that he could fuck anything that he wanted. And the GM kind of humored him to a point. And what I mean is he let him try and hit on anyone he wanted to. But this kid rolled like I did. I think I might have inherited his dice curse. I'm not sure. But he would just roll really, really bad. And the other thing that was so much fun about this incredibly insufferable atheist was when he didn't roll well, he got pissed. He would throw dice around. He would throw things off the table. I got worried that I was going to lose my my safety deposit because he was going to like put a hole in a wall or something. Like he got super like steroid rage fueled anger every time he failed. And so for this entire, I think we only played like 4 or 5 sessions. Like it didn't last very long. But for this entire time, he kept trying to fuck everything that moved and a few things that didn't, and nothing worked. It just failed over and over and over again. So we're in a dungeon delve style thing, and we come down to the next floor of this dungeon. There's this giant red carpet, and for some odd reason, he was really fixated on it, and he was getting really, really mad because he wasn't able to do the things he wanted. By the way, I was playing a Bladesinger, which in 4th edition was it was its own class, and it was weird because basically the way it worked is you would use normal attacks, and then anytime you hit with an attack, you could add a Bladesinger spell on top of it to do extra damage and do something else. Like you could slow them, or make them make the enemy grant combat advantage, or knock them prone. There's a bunch of different options that you had, and it was really cool and really fun, but kind of underpowered because their daily abilities were encounter abilities for the wizard, and so they were never quite as powerful as some of the other classes. But they were an essentials class, so it wasn't that bad. Or they weren't an essentials class, but they were right before essentials came out. So anyway, I'm playing this cool Tiefling Bladesinger because I had this thing for Tieflings at that point. I thought they were the coolest thing ever. I very soon switched over to Eladrin. So I was a Tiefling Bladesinger. Oh, I know why. I was a Tiefling Bladesinger because Tieflings inherently had a resistance to fire, and there was a summon spell I wanted. It was Summon Magma Beast or Summon Fire Elemental or something like that. But the downside to it is either you had to sacrifice your action to make the Fire Elemental go and do something and attack, or you could use your action to do your own thing, and then the elemental would attack on its own. However, you would take fire damage every time it did that, and it was like 10 fire damage every turn that you didn't give it a command or something. And so, because Tieflings had built-in fire resistance, and the way resistance worked in 4th edition was not where you just have the damage; it subtracts a certain number off of any fire damage you take. So if you have resist 5 fire, that meant every time you took fire damage, you would cut that damage down by 5 points. Well, by the time I would have gotten this spell, my Tiefling would have had resist 10 fire damage. So he effectively would have been immune to the downside and would basically get a fire elemental, and he could go in doing his cool Bladesinger stuff while this fire elemental was also doing damage, and it seemed like a really cool class. We never got to that level. Didn't happen because we get down to this place, big red carpet, and not like little skinny red. I'm like a big, huge, like area carpet that's red in here. And we are just learning about how powerful checking for traps is. And so we're trying to be super careful. And this is the first time there's ever been anything on the floor other than stone. So we're all freaking out that we're all going to die. So we start trying to check for traps really poorly. Like, all of us fail the roll, and we're doing everything we can. So, can we try this? Can we try that? And it's just not working. And so finally, this guy that I can't remember his name, he just goes, fuck it. I haven't fucked anything yet today. I'm going to fuck the carpet. And we all just look at him like he's just declared himself, the king of planet Shmoola or something. Like, we're just like, what the hell are you talking about? Why would we do that? It's a carpet in a dungeon. Why the hell would you want to put anything in? No. And so the GM just goes, okay, make me a persuasion check? Or diplomacy is what it was. They didn't have persuasion. You had diplomacy, and it was diplomacy, deception, and I think intimidation was the other one. But he might have had him roll intimidation because he was a very intimidating dragonborn, and the player was getting pissed. Sure enough, he gets a nat 20, and so the GM goes, fine, you fucked the hell out of that carpet. You fucked it so well that you just jizzed over everything, and it got into the mechanics of the trap that was hidden underneath it that we couldn't find, and completely jammed up the track. You fucked a trap to death. which saying that out loud sounds really, really bad, but this is my life, folks. Yeah, that was my first experience with Dungeons and Dragons, and the campaign ended after that. And I said, hey, because I wasn't having fun at all, and so I think the GM's name might have been John. I don't know. Anyway, so I go up to him and I just said, hey, that was really, because after all that happened, like we didn't finish the session. We're just like, okay, you know what? That's good for me, and we all left. And so I'm pretty sure his name was John. I said, hey, John, would you mind? Because I have an idea for a campaign that I'd really like to run. Would you mind if maybe we can trade off weeks or something like that? He goes, oh no, that's fine. And we never went back to his campaign. And so we ran. I created a pirate themed campaign that, funny enough, that one lasted. I don't know. I think that lasted a few months, and then people just couldn't keep showing up. Like we ran into scheduling issues more than anything else. And that's when I started playing in a friendly local game store, and that's when I got to create my sword mage that I made on here during Daily December, and that was a lot of fun. But anyway, yeah. So that was my first introduction. So going back to why I was talking about DMing. As a DM, there are other things that make me excited when I'm looking at a new system. A lot of times, the lore itself, for me, is kind of cool. Like, there's some systems, like the Essence 20 stuff. I love the Essence 20 stuff, not so much because of the Essence 20 system, but because I love Power Rangers, G.I. Joe is okay, and I love Transformers. And that's what got me into it. The system itself is great. But it feels so hyper attuned to those three, I guess four because of My Little Pony. Those four things that I couldn't come up with my own campaign setting using any of those systems. Like for me, if I'm going to do G.I. Joe, if I'm going to play the G.I. Joe RPG, I'm going to use it to play G.I. Joe. I'm not going to create my own kind of military, pseudo military force. And so I'm like, no, I'm going to play G.I. Joe. Or Power Rangers, I'm going to play Power Rangers. But when I'm looking at a lot of RPGs, again, the lore and the setting itself is sometimes cool, but a lot of times what gets me excited as a GM is what is a campaign that I've had in my head that I just haven't been able to figure out how to run. Like, Cypher system. The thing that got me excited about the Cypher system was because I was running, Realms of the Wild, my open legend campaign for Zelda Universe. We were running it, and I found the Cypher system, and I got really pumped about it specifically because of the Strange, because I thought this is so cool. This idea that you can kind of jump between worlds and create, and have different powers based on different worlds, and it just started kind of swimming in my head of, wow, this is really, really cool. I would love to see, how I could turn that into an adventure, because the plot of Realms of the Wild, without spoiling anything if you're making your way through the series, which nobody is doing, but if you are making your way through our 5.5-year long game, the plot of Realms of the Wild is something happens in Hyrule that shatters Hyrule into 3 different parallel versions of itself. There's one that is called the Courage Realm, and that is your standard Legend of Zelda, where Link gets the Triforce of Courage, and he uses the Master Sword and a shield, and he fights Ganon and all that. There was the Wisdom Realm, where instead of getting the Triforce of Courage, Link got the Triforce of Wisdom. And it was very kind of steampunk, tech-themed. Like, he still got each one of these versions of Link. He is the hero of legend. And each one of them still gets the Master Sword, but they use it in very different ways. Like the Master Sword for the Wisdom Realm Link is basically something that he uses to control and improve the various gadgets that he uses. And he's very much like, he uses the hook shot a shit ton. And all of the really cool kind of complex technological items that you get, the Wisdom Link uses those exclusively. And then there was the Realm of Power, where, again, instead of getting the Triforce of Courage, Link got the Triforce of Power, and he was a mage. Like, instead of being a little kid that found a sword and, hacked and slashed his way through stuff, no, he was a mage. He was a wizard, and he used the Master Sword. He actually would keep it sheathed and use it as a conduit for his spells. And so we were already dealing with this kind of parallel worlds thing, and that was the whole plot to the game. And it was a really, really fun game where they had to kind of figure out, okay, what was it that caused the realms to fracture? And they started finding out that having 3 different versions of the same world was kind of breaking reality, and if they didn't fix it, eventually all 3 would cease to exist. And so it was a really fun campaign, and they got to jump between the 3 worlds and find out how things were different, and they got to find out why they could jump between realms when no one else could. It was really fun. While I was doing it, I found the Cypher system. I had this really crazy idea because I really liked the idea of kind of parallel worlds, because that is a theme in the Legend of Zelda series just as a whole. Like, every single Zelda game has this kind of multiple worlds motif. In the original Legend of Zelda, you had the overworld, then you had the underworld. All of the dungeons in the Legend of Zelda are technically all on the same map. They're just in different places on it. So that's why every single dungeon you have to go downstairs. It's because you're in the underworld. Zelda 2, you had the overworld, and then you had the palaces, was kind of the dichotomy thing. That's the one game where it's really, really weak, that kind of dichotomy. Then you go to A Link to the Past, and you have the light world and the dark world. You go to Ocarina of Time, and you have the past and the future. You go Majora's Mask, and technically in that one, there isn't like a quote-unquote, like the whole thing is an alternate world from the regular Hyrule. Wind Waker, you basically had land and sea. Twilight Princess, you had the Twilight Realm and the regular Hyrule. Like, it's every single one. Even when you get to, like, Wind Waker, you had the upper, or not, was it Wind Waker? No, it was, they just re-released it. What was it called? I have it right here. Skyward Sword, there. Skyward Sword, you have the overworld and then the ground. And then when you get to Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, Breath of the Wild, you have the world, and then you have the shrines, which are their own separate kind of world. And then when you get to Tears of the Kingdom, you have the regular world, you have the sky places, and then you have the depths. So there's always been this theme of kind of multiple worlds that you're dealing with throughout all of Legend of Zelda. And so that's what I kind of pitched to Elias, who's the head of the Twitch channel for Zelda Universe. Was like, hey, this is what I'd like to do. And he was kind enough to me not to go, that sounds really stupid. And he let me kind of design this world and do this thing. And it turned into something amazing. While I was doing it, though, to get back to the Cypher system, I had this idea, well, what if it wasn't just 3 worlds? And what if every time you switch between realms, you change, you got a new set of powers? I wanted to do something like that in Realms of the Wild, the first Kika campaign. And Open Legend is a phenomenal system. I love it. I will run it every day of the week and twice on Sunday. It is such a fun, interesting, cool system. But finding a way to basically change everybody's powers, there is a way to do it. There's a feat you can take that basically gives you the ability to shift into another form, and we actually had 2 different characters that took it. Elias's character Aruna took it so he could turn into like rolling Goron form, which he used crazy good. Like his rolling Goron form was massively cool. And then Chax played this shadow thief named Arel, and Arel actually has a shadow form that we actually built and didn't give it any offensive abilities. The entire purpose of Shadow Arel was she could basically step into somebody's shadow and completely control them. So her entire thing for using Shadow Arel was she would jump into a bad guy's shadow, and instead of facing four bad guys, you would be facing three bad guys and one dude that suddenly switched sides. It was a really cool ability. So I theoretically could have done that, but it would have required a ton of homebrewing and a ton of other things. It would have required me to change everything about how I was running the game. I just didn't think that was cool. And so when I started writing Campaign 2, I wanted to deal with this kind of multiple realities thing, but I didn't want to limit myself to just three. I'm like, I want a dozen, 2 dozen. I want countless different realities. And I'd like to be able to make like homages to other games. Like I'd love to go to the Minish Cap, or, oh yeah, the Minish Cap. If we're still talking about various versions of different worlds. The Minish Cap, you had the big world and the small world. But I'd like people to be able to go to the Minish Cap and then go to A Link to the Past and go to the Light and Dark World and stuff like that. Like, I'd love to have that be a thing, and I'd love them to be able to kind of change depending on the place that they're in. And so what ended up happening was I found the Cypher system, and the Strange specifically, every time you go to a new recursion, you don't have to, but you can get a new focus. And because the system for changing foci was already there really wasn't a ton that I had to do to kind of modify it to work for Tears of the Realm. And so that's what Tears of the Realm is based on, is this idea that wouldn't it be cool if you could play all the Zelda games instead of just one Zelda game? And every time you went to a new, it's, I don't know if you guys have ever seen this, but they have things for emulators that will randomly switch your game, and it's really cool. I've seen people that are doing like charity streams and stuff like that will do things like, every minute I switch to a new game, and so they'll be playing like The Legend of Zelda, and then it will switch, and now they're playing Super Metroid or something or like that. And so yeah, that's basically what I made. It was a tabletop RPG version of, I can just change the rules whenever I want. And thus far, we've been having a lot of fun. They only have gone to one. We call them tiers because the lore for it is, in the sky are these massive crystals that are just hanging there, and they're tier shaped. So we call them tiers. And they've entered one of them, and they all got cool stuff. Elias's character got Metroid armor, got Samus Aran armor, basically. One of the players, Chax is my friend. Chax is a wonderful person. And she and I talk about D&D constantly. Like I've helped her build a couple kind of weird characters that she really enjoys. She plays in one of my D&D games on Wednesdays. She has this thing for the Echo Knights, because Echo Knights are just fucking badass. If you don't know what the Echo Knight is, it's a fighter subclass that Matt Mercer designed. That I can't remember if it showed up in the Tal'Dorei campaign setting or not. But anyway, you can make them on D&D Beyond, because now I believe every Tal'Dorei book and every Critical Role book is on there now, and I own all of them on there because I don't have impulse control. But it's a really cool fighter that basically can create a copy of themselves, and that's what this subclass is based around. Is your copy becomes more powerful, and you can switch places with it and use it to scout ahead and do lots of cool stuff with it. It's a cool character idea, and so she likes Echo Knights, and so I decided that for her character, I would give her the focus of can exist in two places at once. And so now she can create holograms of herself. Right now she can only create one hologram, and that's more than enough for her to break everything in the damn game. And yeah, the other people got, one of them, Ilea, who plays a character named Dilly. They are a circus performer that's really good at throwing daggers, and they have this bracer that just gives them an infinite supply of daggers to throw, which is cool, and I love it. But I gave Dilly, the ability to mentally control computers. They can just literally just remotely hack computers with their brain, which was really fun because they were in a hyper technological society. And then Kiri's character, Aino, has a little pet fox and has kind of Aurora Borealis powers. Well, in this world, the little Arctic fox pet that she has turns into a robot fox, and so she controls and builds robots. And then the last one turned into a cyborg. The player's name is Lex, and his character Mado is a shield salesman and uses shields for everything, and so he turned him into a cyborg that can grow shields. So that was interesting. So anyway, it was... So getting back to the topic I originally was talking about, the thing that made me excited about the Cypher system is it let me tell a story that I couldn't any other way. And I like that. And can I do Tears of the Realms? That's what my new campaign's called. Can I do Tears of the Realm using another system? Yeah, I could have done it in Open Legend, and that would have been perfectly fine. I could have tried to do it in D&D, and it would have been really, really weird to get the kind of shifting, because D&D just really doesn't do that, but I probably could have homebrewed away. There's a lot of other systems. I could have gone 13th Age, or could have done one of the many Powered by the Apocalypse, and basically just gave them a different playbook every time they went to a different thing. That could have been really interesting. There's a lot of different systems that I probably could have done this in. But the Cypher system just fits so well for it. And that's the thing that gets me excited when I'm looking at a new system is there something in this system that is going to let me do something that I can't do in a system that I'm currently running. So one of the reasons I loved Fabula Ultima so much, because the character creation is interesting, don't get me wrong, but because this system is designed by default to be used in your own custom world, there is so much world building stuff that's built into there. And again, it's designed to replicate an old school JRPG, and modern tabletop games really don't emulate that very well because they're significantly more complex than tabletop RPGs, or than JRPGs ever were. And they focus on different things. And so, yeah, I mean, I easily could have run Tears of the Realm in Fabula Ultima if I had known it existed. But again, I started writing the campaign Bible for Tears of the Realm probably about 2 years before we finished the first campaign, Realms of the Wild. Like I was working on it for 2 years, off and on. Like I wasn't like writing. I was just like making plans and thinking of stuff. But yeah, I worked in it for 2 years. So by the time I decided, and I told the players, I think easily a year and a half or 2 years before we actually completed it, there was a Cypher System sale, I think on Humble Bundle or Bundle of Holding, I can't remember which. But it was basically, you could get the entirety of the Cypher System for like 20 or 30 bucks. And it was everything. It was Numenera, The Strange, Stars Are Fire. Like, it was so much stuff. And yeah, man, my brain just died. It was something I was really excited about, and so I told all the players before announcing anything to anyone else. I mentioned to everyone, hey, by the way, guys, I'm not saying that this campaign is over in any way, shape, or form. We're still playing this. I plan on, having a really cool ending to this, and it's going to be entirely based on how long it takes you guys to get to that ending. However, I'm starting to work on the next campaign. If you all want to be a part of the next campaign, there's no auditions. By the way, for Realms of the Wild, because I was doing it for Zelda Universe, Everyone that played had to audition for it, and we had, I don't know, I think we had maybe 8 or 9 people audition. We might have had up to 10. And I chose the 4 that I thought felt the best. And it turned out really well. Like, again, like, we actually, we had somebody audition that until I actually talk to them and get their permission to tell the stories, I will never reveal who it was. But it's someone that I know, someone that I've played with, and someone who is significantly more famous than I am. And I had contacted them and said, "Hey, I'm doing this thing. Would you like to be a part of it?" And they said, "Yeah, sure. It sounds like a lot of fun." And we had them audition, and they had probably one of the coolest characters I've seen in a tabletop RPG. One of the things that you could do for in Open Little Legend, and this is just turned into RPG story time, so that's what we'll call it. One of the things you could do in Open Legend is you can have a pet, effectively. I think you take a feat called Companion or something like that. What it lets you do is it lets you create another character that is less powerful than your character at first. You can get them pretty powerful. And they have a bunch of checks and balances in the system that makes it so a character with a companion is not instantly massively overpowered. And eventually, in Realms of the Wild, Kiri's character, Kess, eventually got her own companion. They they were in a technological city, and they got to the city core with they found this little kind of cleaning bot in the city, and they took it to the city core and plugged this the robot into the city core, and it went full on HAL 9000, tried to exterminate everybody. Well, because they're my players, and my players can't do anything normally, instead of trying to destroy the city that was trying to kill them, they made friends with it, and they brought this character who is named Bool, B001. So they got Bool, and Kess kind of adopted Bool, and so eventually she took a feat so that Bool could have actual stats in that. So anyway, this person who is more famous than I am created this character who was a Hylian, because what we did was you go, okay, we're going to be the way we had them audition is they would play a game with us using Open Legend, and we would tell them that the setting is Ocarina of Time. It's going to be Ocarina of Time. It's going to be in the past before Ganondorf takes over the world. So basically before Link pulls the Master Sword out after getting the 3 spiritual stones. Spoiler alert if you've never played the Ocarina of Time. So we tell them, it's Ocarina of Time. Any race that exists in Ocarina of Time, you can choose. Races aren't technically a thing in Open Legend. Like, you can be any race that you want. It's not going to change anything. So this person decides that they want to be, I think it was a Hylian, and they wanted to be a noble. And they had this kind of undead guard that had served the family as the protector of that family for generations. So they had a Stalfos minion. And it was such a cool character because the Stalfos minion turned into its own character in and of itself, and the primary character for this player was really, really cool, and it was very defensive. And the plot that they had to deal with was basically, they didn't find this out until they were there. They were just told, you're going to be in Hyrule Castle Town when the game starts, so we'll come up with a reason for you to be there. So while they're in Hyrule Castle Town, Link pulls the sword out, gets transported to the Sacred Realm, and trapped for 7 years. Well, at the exact same time, Ganondorf enters the Sacred Land, gets a hold of the Triforce, and then starts conquering Hyrule. And basically, out of the Temple of Time, all of these monsters start pouring out as Ganon's troops. So they're in Castle Town, and they all are there for one reason or another, and then they have to basically do what they can to delay the forces long enough for the people in Hyrule Castle Town to be able to retreat and get to Kakariko Village, which is where everyone goes afterwards. And so that was the whole thing, is they start off with some role playing, and then the sky turns dark and everything goes real bad, and then monsters start just showing up and they have to deal with them. It's a really, really fun little one-shot campaign, and it was such a cool thing. The second game we ran, it was basically the same plot, but they were in Lon Lon Ranch instead of Hyrule Castle Town. But it was the same basic things. It happens, Ganon starts doing stuff and they have to basically defend Lon Lon Ranch. And that one became weird. One of the players, Ilea, who eventually went on to play Zulta in Realms of the Wild, and is now playing Dilly in Tears of the Realm. Ilea decided that she wanted to play a fairy. I'm like, that's really cool. But this is a fairy that has trauma because she was kept it was a joke character. Because that's, Ilea and I know each other because she played in my parody campaign, and she played this bard named Cadence, the whole campaign is a joke. And so Cadence is a joke as well. And it's a great character, and I love playing with Ilea. So she decided to create a joke character. She's basically a fairy that had basically PTSD from being trapped in a bottle. And so she couldn't speak around Hylians. And I told her then, I'm like, you do realize that this is an audition, and we're doing it to see how you kind of play with other people. So there's going to be a Hylian in the party. That means you can't talk. She said, no, we'll do some. And that's what it turned into, was she played a non-speaking character in a primarily vocal game style. And it went well enough. But yeah, I mean, that was so much fun. One of these days, I'm going to reach out to the person that was in that game and go, hey, because on my hard drive, we recorded all the games so that I could send them to the other producers, and they could watch it over, and we could all talk about, okay, which people did we like, which people did we not like, which were the ones that felt really good, which people played off each other really well, and which ones just we kind of had to beg and plead to get them to say anything. And yeah, we ended up getting a team of 4 people, including this person that unfortunately had to drop out due to just being too busy to commit. And that's when, like a year or so before that, I had been slightly obsessed with Kiri Callaghan since she was a Geek and Sundry vlogger. I thought she was amazing. And she was one of the vloggers that got found in the vlogger search, which is basically a bunch of people created videos and basically applied to be an official Geek and Sundry vlogger. I did it as well, and I didn't get in for very good reasons. Kiri, on the other hand, made an amazing video called Curiosity, and she became an official Geek and Sundry vlogger. And I was so jealous of her and so happy for her at the exact same time. And I had been really impressed with her for years. And I did something where I think I covered a song on my YouTube channel, and we had a mutual friend. It might have been my buddy Imp. I can't remember. But we had a mutual friend, and they saw my video and said, wow, that was really good. Or it might have been the Friday feature focus I did on Kiri, where I did an entire video where I just talked about how awesome Kiri is. It's still on this channel if you guys want to see a very young me kind of fanboy over Kiri Callaghan. I did this for a Friday feature for focus on Kiri or something, and somebody that was a mutual friend of both of ours said, you know what you should do? You should sing with Kiri. I'm like, yeah, sure, because Kiri Callaghan wants to sing with some no-name loser like me. And she did. And so I believe it's still on Kiri's channel. We did a cover of I See the Light from Tangled. And it turned out so pretty and so amazing. And I got to sing with Kiri Callaghan. And because of that, we got to know each other a little bit. And I was forever smitten. No, Kiri is amazing. So is her wife. And her wife is so amazingly awesome. Her wife's name is Angelique. And Angelique is by far the coolest person I've ever met in my life. Angelique constantly is wearing like suits and armor, and And she looks so badass in every single one of them. Like, I've never seen a picture where she just doesn't look suave. She's worn pirate stuff where she's in like the whole pirate garb, and you just sit there and go, "Go!" She's amazing, and she and Kiri are so amazing together. And I gave a toast at their wedding, and by toast at their wedding, they got married during COVID. So by toast at their wedding, I mean I recorded me saying something nice, and then they played it in a live stream later. But they liked my toast. So anyway, this person who's super awesome and is cooler than I am had to drop out. And we're struggling because I don't want to run a campaign with 3 players. I wanted 4. And so we're going, well, who are we going to get to be the 4th? Who are we going to get to be the 4th? And I said, you know what? I'll just reach out to Kiri. I mean, what's the worst that could happen? She says, please never talk to me again, plebeian. And I think after years of therapy, I could deal with that. So I just reach out to Kiri. I go, Kiri, I know this is going to sound weird, but I have a thing, and, you know, would you mind, like, auditioning for it? And to my incredible surprise, the one thing that she told me, she's like, I'm really busy, and I don't know if I'd be able to. I said, it's perfectly fine. We will work around your schedule. We're going to be playing Saturday mornings, so it's not like it's going to be prime time for anything you'd be doing at work. And yeah, we got her to audition. I can't remember. I think she might have played a version of Kess in the trial game, yeah, it turned out super well. And now Kira and I have known each other for years, and we interact all the time. And she's super cool, and yeah. Lots of cool stuff. So, yeah. There have been some really cool stuff that have happened directly because of tabletop RPGs, and I think that's one of the reasons why I've kind of focused on it so much. Is just I've had so much fun, and I've learned so much from playing tabletop RPGs, and they literally changed my life. Like becoming a local coordinator for the Adventures League, and then actually getting put on staff on a local convention to run all of their organized play programs, and doing the convention circuit, and then eventually, you know, doing stuff with Zelda Universe. And I got to meet Chris Perkins a couple of times, which was super fun. And yeah, like I've done a lot of amazing things, and now I have friends that have literally worked for Wizards of the Coast, like Gil, who's played in some of my parody games, and everybody knows him as Gil the Vlogsmith. He's the dude that when Critical Role says, "Don't fuck me, Gil," that's the Gil they're talking about. He's a buddy of mine, and he actually worked. He actually did costuming for the Stream of Many Eyes, I think is what it was called. Like they made him into a demon thing, and he also forged this massive sign for Wizards of the Coast Dungeons and Dragons stuff. And that was really cool. Kiri has actually been on one of their charity live streams by Wizards of the Coast, and yeah. So I mean, it's been really cool being able to be a part of that culture. And as much as a lot of things that happen in the D&D culture and tabletop RPG culture that kind of pisses me off, like the whole OGL debacle was nonsense and really stupid, led mostly by lies. I am proud to be part of, you know, TTRPG peoples. So anyway, if I don't start uploading this soon, it's not going to be up today. So that's going to be all for me today. I will try to have something that is more than just story time later. Unless you guys want more stories, I've got tons of stories about nonsense that have happened at my various tables. So, yeah, let me know in the comments down below. Otherwise, again, as all for me today, I will see you guys next time. All right? Bye-bye.